Welcome to this week's edition of Hockey Unfiltered with Ken Campbell. I am the sidekick Dylan Waugh. I am the Lester Flats to Ken's Earl Scruggs. If you get that one, you're probably dead. So today we're going to be talking about the Los Angeles Kings, the Calgary Flames, just discussing what kind of a market is it? Is it buyers or sellers? Also the Vegas Golden Knights, the Boston Bruins, and finally the Ontario Hockey League. Ken, how you holding up?
Oh, I'm doing great. You nailed the intro today, which
First
was
time.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Good job.
Yeah.
I didn't get that reference. I'm not dead, though. What is that, like some old Western or something?
Lester Flats and Earl Scruggs were basically them plus Bill Monroe plus Ralph Stanley were essentially the three groups, the Stanley brothers, that started bluegrass.
Oh, wow. Holy cow.
In the 20s or 30s.
Wow, that's pretty obscure.
Yeah. Well, it could have been like, I'm Ralph's brother Stanley to Ralph Stanley. I don't remember what his brother's name is.
Okay, well, good. Well, good on you for knowing that, but you know a lot of stuff that's pretty useless.
Stupid.
Yeah.
I'm well aware.
Well, like when it comes to stuff that, you know, really that you need to know, like
hockey?
that Vegas isn't good.
Yeah, my wife only married me for the Trivia Pursuit partner up.
Vegas lost to Philly last night. Eh? You know that, right? 2-1, right? You're aware of that, right?
I wrote these questions before that was...
I'm still calling you out for last week, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's fair.
Last week, I'm calling you out. Sorry.
Yeah.
But anyways, let's get started.
Okay, so first question, like this I think puts everything into a lens, almost everything that we're talking about today into a lens, which is it seems that this year there's a lot more teams that are sellers than we've seen in previous years, right?
Yeah.
You've got Coyotes, Philly, Montreal. Who else is in that?
Everyone who's not in the playoffs in the West, right?
Right. Yes,
everybody.
exactly.
Everybody.
Yeah, Seattle potentially.
Or sorry, in the East. I'm sorry. I meant in the East. Because the East, the playoffs in the East are. Yeah. We know who's making the playoffs. Right. We don't know who's going to be playing whom and what seed they're going to finish.
Yeah.
But the 8 playoff teams that are there now are going to be the 8 playoff teams.
Right. So it's just interesting because normally we see 1 or 2 sellers. Like last year, it was like, we thought that we had 2. We thought that Nashville was going to be a seller, and then at the last minute they said nope, and then we had basically 1 seller in the league last year. So is this going to finally be a buyer's market?
I think it might be. It's what is interesting to me is there's not a lot going on. What are we? How many days are we out? We're less than 2 weeks out.
We're less than 2 weeks out.
12 days out.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot going on in terms of imminent trades. And now that I said that, as soon as this podcast comes out, the second it comes out, there's going to be a blockbuster.
Yeah.
But usually leading up, there seems to be...
So we have you to thank for the upcoming blockbuster.
Yes. There seems to be more activity, earlier on. Like teams seem to want to get their business done a little earlier. And I guess a lot of that is because teams are cap strapped and they don't want to take on $1 that they don't have to take on before they have to take it on.
Yeah.
So I guess that must be part of it too. But I think you're right. I mean, there's a demarcation point this year, right? We've got everybody, 8 teams in the East are presumably in a position to sell. Whether or not they sell, I don't know. Mm-hmm. But they're in a position to sell because they're not making the playoffs. Yeah. We know that. We know that the New York Islanders aren't making the playoffs. We know that, the Ottawa Senators, the Detroit Red Wings, the Montreal Canadiens, we know, like, there's no chance.
Yeah.
Like, even if Montreal wins every game the rest of the year, they finish with, I think, 89 points, which won't be enough to make the playoffs. So we know that. So there's now suddenly there's 8 teams out there that are looking to move assets to get futures, right?
Yeah.
And then in the West, you've got some teams battling it out for the last spot. Is it going to be Dallas? Is it going to be, who's it going to be, right? Is it going to be Edmonton? That's basically it at this point, right?
Yeah.
And then almost certainly Winnipeg's not making the playoffs. There's a pretty big demarcation point there too. So now, is Winnipeg selling on Andrew Kopp? Is Winnipeg, so now then that pool becomes bigger. So I think I think you're onto something there, young man. I think you're onto something.
Well, mark the calendar because this is the first time I've been onto something on this podcast, I'd say. Yeah. Since I had the idea of the podcast.
Right.
That is, right?
That was a really good idea.
You like the idea of putting you front and center in a podcast format. Yeah, okay. I can see why you'd like that.
But do you remember our first meeting?
I do.
And I said, how much is this going to cost me? And you were like, no, you don't understand. And I didn't.
You're the interesting one. That's what you don't seem to understand here. Yeah, I do remember that. That still gives me a chuckle.
That was pretty funny.
I think, to your point, like about all the sellers, like, okay, here's the TSN trade bait board, right?
Right.
I feel like the prices just have to come down because if you're inquiring on Ben Sherratt, you're like, hey, Montreal, I want Ben Sherratt. Ben Sherratt is maybe the TSN trade bait board is not the best because he's listed as a right defenseman. He's a left.
Yeah.
But that's all right.
And he's second on their board right now.
Third on their board right now.
After Giroux and Chychrun. Chychrun, yeah.
But so if you're in Montreal, they say that they want a first and a fourth or a first and a prospect, right? Because they want the same deal as David Savard, right? That Tampa gave for him last year at the deadline. But if you're a team, you're going, hey, Kent, I mean, I'm just taking a quick cursory glance at the board here. Yeah. And I could also go for
Justin
Chychrun, pardon me, John Klingberg, Mark Giordano, Colin Miller, Hampus Lindholm,
Justin Braun,
Nick Leddy. We talked about Rasmus Ristolainen. And I mean, okay, great. Ben Sherratt went to the playoffs last year. Went to the Stanley Cup final last year. Okay, great. He's a big, strong guy. But at the same time, like, you know what I mean?
You're not going to see teams give up that for these guys. Like, you're not going to see a team give up what the Leafs gave up for Nick Foligno.
Yeah.
And it's all
also first and fourth.
Yeah, first and fourth. So it's to me, like I said, at the trade market too, it's like hockey players are like real estate. Yeah. They're only worth what someone deems them to be worth. So just because last year Montreal got whatever for David for David Savard.
Tampa.
Tampa got whatever for David Savard.
And now he's on Montreal. I know it's confusing.
Wait a minute. Yeah.
He was a rental for Tampa last year.
Yes.
And then now Montreal said, well, you guys beat us. And it's probably because of David Savard and David Savard alone.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That was it.
Yeah. That was the reason.
But just because the prices that were established last year, it doesn't carry over to this year, right?
Right.
It all depends on supply and demand. And what we just talked about was the supply may very well exceed the demand.
Yeah. I mean, I just went down the list even some more, and you've got Luke Schenn, Niels Lundqvist, Ristolainen we talked about. Calvin DeHaan would be an interesting pickup as well.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of good middle pairing defenseman, which that's what Ben Sherratt is. And one could even argue whether good applies to it.
Yeah.
But, he's a middle pairing defenseman, and there's a lot of good middle pairing defensemen on this list.
Yep.
And some top pairing defensemen. So, yeah, you got to think that this might shape up to be probably the first seller's market that I can remember in a very long time, with the parity in the NHL that we've seen.
Yeah, I don't remember from one year to the next, so I wouldn't be able to tell you when the last seller's market was. But
I'm surprised you remember that first meeting we had for the podcast.
I do, yes. but I might forget it by next week. I think you're right. There's just, now that you sort of bring that up, there's really seems to be a lot of teams out there looking to unload guys.
Yeah.
And so what does that create? Then you move closer and closer to the deadline.
Yeah.
Does that mean that teams get more desperate to buy or more desperate to sell? Because, theoretically, you can go to the trade deadline and say, well, we want to do this and we want to add this, but if we don't, it's not the end of the world. Whereas, a team that's selling is going, we can't let this guy walk for nothing.
Never re-signing him.
Like Anaheim can't let their guys, Lindholm and Raquel and those guys, they can't let those guys walk for nothing.
Yeah.
So
big time.
They may be in a spot where it's like, it's the day of the deadline and nobody's giving us what we want. So let's adjust our expectations.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, and especially for committed rebuilding teams where there's no way that, well, actually, I've heard the rumor probably on 32 Thoughts where Philly is trying to re-sign Ristolainen. I'm kind of just like, why?
Yeah.
But, you know, like, there's no way that that's a huge priority to them. And if you can't make it happen by the deadline, you just got to take what you can get.
Yeah, exactly.
And, you know, if you're Montreal, you signed Sherrod as a free agent 2 or 3 years ago. And so, you know,
he didn't cost you anything.
He didn't cost you anything.
Yeah.
And so whatever you get is just kind of gravy.
Yeah. And he contributed a fair bit.
He
contributed quite a bit.
To all my joking, he did contribute a lot. The Los Angeles Kings are currently second in the Pacific Division.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a bad division, but
but still, somebody's got to be.
They were supposed to be rebuilding still, right? Like they were supposed to be rebuilding, and so do you think that there's at all a chance that Los Angeles can reclaim some of its playoff magic?
I'm not 100% sure about that, but they've got the template, right?
Yeah,
and the guys that are there have the template. Drew Doughty's still there. Andre Kopitar's still. Dustin Brown. Dustin Brown is still there. So to me, like LA's a really interesting team because I got to be thinking that those guys are saying, "Hey man, let's empty the quiver here. Let's go for it." You know, 2012, we were the second wild card team.
Yeah,
and we went on a heater and won it all with Jonathan Quick.
Yeah.
You know, another guy who's still there. Yeah. So
and playing well this year.
Yeah. So to me, they're a really interesting team. Like, do you just kind of, you know, I mean, they've made a fair number of moves, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they signed Danault.
Yeah.
They picked up Victor Arvidsson.
Yeah.
You know, they've made some really good, really like canny moves, right? Already.
And both Danault and Arvidsson are people that are known by the fan bases of those teams.
Yeah.
As being excellent players, but don't necessarily carry those big name cachets around the league.
Yeah, I mean, Danault has 16. That's 16 goals.
Danault's a freight train, in my opinion.
Yeah,
I look at Danault as a freight train.
Yeah.
He will never put up amazing numbers.
Yeah,
but he'll always get his 40 to 50 points, and it doesn't matter if he plays against McDavid every single night or if he plays against a Pee-wee AAA team that, you know, Martin St. Louis used to coach every single night. He will always put up the same amount of points.
Right.
And that consistency, like he's not going to go fast, but there's no slowing him down either.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And that's a huge get for the Los Angeles Kings.
So the Kings, so do they swing for the fences here? You know, do they try and get Jacob Chychrun?
Yeah.
Who's been linked to them for quite a while.
Yeah.
Right? Like, do they make that bold move?
Yeah.
And do they strip themselves of picks and prospects? You know?
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see because I'm sure there's going to be some internal pressure from those veterans saying, hey, look, you know, we've done our part. We've won the 2 cups for this franchise. You know, we did the heavy lifting in 2012 and 2014. You know, we won it and we showed that we could do it in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So give us something a little more here and let's see if we can do it again.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to that point, Quinton Byfield is having a fine year.
Yeah. Well, he's just come back. I mean, he was hurt for half of it.
That's true.
Yeah. So, so.
But I guess, but like that to me would be the piece that would be being stripped if you're really swinging for the fences.
Right. And your first pick. I mean, I don't think like Arthur Kaliev's going anywhere.
Right.
You know, I'm not sure that, you know, you want to start dealing those guys, but Byfield would definitely be a big time chip to play if you were going to do that. I don't know if they're prepared to go that far. I wouldn't be if I were the Los Angeles Kings.
No, neither would I.
I would not. There's no way. But you know, if you get Jacob Chychrun, you've got a very, very good defenseman who's under contract for a couple more years at a very good cap number.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're just getting a rental for this year. You're getting something that's going to give you quality for a couple of years at least.
Yeah, and at cost certainty.
Right.
Which when you've got a blue line that consists of Drew Doughty,
Yeah.
Having a guy that's an extremely good value would be a nice change. No, I'm just kidding. Doughty's, of course, had a really good year as well.
He's had a great year,
and that's part of the resurgence of the Kings.
Yeah.
But so you think that if they were to be targeting somebody, it'd probably be a Jacob Chychrun.
Well,
if they were to swing for the fences.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
I mean, they got Michael Handzus at the deadline in 2014, and it worked out real well.
Yeah.
That was one of those under the radar ones. That was one of those ones where I every year I go, okay, which trade is it going to be that we're all talking about this trade today because it's trade deadline day.
Right.
But during the Stanley Cup final, which under the radar trade are we going to be talking about?
Yeah.
And those are the ones that are interesting.
Yeah. Before we get to the Calgary Flames, if you're watching this on YouTube, please give this a subscribe and a like. Check out kencampbell.substack.com for these episodes directly into your inbox, plus other writing. And if you're on Apple Podcasts, please give us also a review and a like. Did you know that we don't have any reviews on Apple Podcasts?
No, I did not.
It's bizarre because people have DM'd me saying that they love the show.
Yeah.
People have DM'd you saying that they love the show. And yet nobody's reviewed us on Apple Podcasts.
Well, step up, people.
Yeah, let's go. Let's move.
Go.
Yeah.
Get off here.
Not if you hate us. Then don't worry about it. But your opinions don't matter anyways. And on top of that, we have of all the people that watch our videos on YouTube, and we break up all these videos into clips. Yeah, I know. I've been nerding out on some analytics lately. Only 12% of the people watching our videos are subscribers.
Oh, okay.
Come on, guys.
Subscribers to what?
To our YouTube channel.
Oh, we have a YouTube channel?
You're not subscribed?
I don't think so. Oh, okay. Well, that's something I learned. I didn't even know you were supposed to subscribe to a YouTube channel. Okay. Well, whatever that is.
That's why I'm the tech guy here.
People should do that.
Yeah. So just wanted to throw that out there before we got on to the next segment. The next segment being, and also videos come out every single day on our YouTube channel. I break up all these segments into videos.
Okay,
so
well, listen.
If all you care about is the Calgary Flames, which is our next segment, then you just click on the Calgary Flames and that's all you have to listen to as opposed to the whole episode. Yes.
Right.
So the Calgary Flames, moving on to the next subject, have 2 seconds, a fifth, and a seventh. Do you think that means that they're done after the addition of Tyler Toffoli?
Well, they might be, just because, as you say, I mean, they have no picks.
Right.
You know, I mean, they've got the 2 seconds. They've traded away their first, their third, and their fourth are gone. So that's a lot of currency. And to me, you know, in the Toffoli trade, they made it pretty clear they weren't going to give up a Dylan Dubé or a Connor Zary. So, I mean, why, you know, if they weren't willing to give it up for Tyler Toffoli, why would they be willing to do it in a subsequent trade that probably won't bring someone that is as impactful as Tyler Toffoli?
Yeah.
Okay. So to me, you know, now you're sort of nibbling around the edges, right? So they probably need some help on the right side a little bit, you know. So do you go out and do you get a Rickard Raquel or someone like that? And then, you know, on the D side of things, I could see them, you know, sort of trying to get a defenseman, but not, you know, a frontline guy. Mm-hmm. More of one of those depth guys that we talked about previously, like a Justin Braun or, you know, one of those guys. I could definitely see that. But you know, I mean, they're going pretty well. You know, they're top heavy with their scoring but they're getting some fairly decent contributions down the line as well. Mm-hmm. Unless, you know, like, has Sean Monahan worn out his welcome in Calgary? You know, maybe he's a chip that you're willing to trade.
If you trade him, you've got to get some kind of a replacement for him in that trade.
You have to get a centerman who can play on your bottom two lines, because that's kind of where he's sort of fitting in these days.
Yeah, I mean, a very good bottom two line center.
Yeah, I mean, he's not ahead of Lindholm. He's not ahead of Backlund, right? So now he's a bottom six centerman. So maybe somebody says, well, on our team, he could be our second line center. And so maybe one of those struggling teams will be willing to, you know, make a deal with them to get a Sean Monahan.
So just looking at Sean Monahan, he's got one more year, 2022, 23, and then he's a UFA.
Yep.
He's at $6.375 million.
Yeah.
Wonder if that could work in a Claude Giroux deal.
You're going to have to Calgary's going to have to eat some of that.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah.
But I mean, you've got one more year to UFA, and then no more years to UFA. The lining lines up pretty well. I don't know. But I mean, this brings out the next concern, which is, do you think that Calgary would be worried about messing with their chemistry? They're really rolling right now.
They are. They lost last night, but I mean, all things being equal, you're going to lose some games, right? So
sooner or later.
Yeah. No, I think they've overachieved. Yeah. They've really shown a lot better than I think a lot of people had them. I think people had them kind of in the playoff mix. Yeah. Not this good. I mean, which tells you what truly great goaltending can give you. Right. Which is what they have. Yeah. And then there's the whole sort of Johnny Gaudreau situation, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, do you swing for the fences because he's signing with Philadelphia next year? Right. I mean, this is almost getting Bobrovsky-esque. Like everybody knew Sergei Bobrovsky was signing with Florida. Everybody knew it. Yeah. And now, is it just a fait accompli that Johnny Gaudreau is going to replace Claude Giroux in Philadelphia? Right. As a free agent signing in the summer? I don't know, but I think you have to sort of contemplate a reality where Johnny Gaudreau is not a part of it. Yeah, it's and how many times do you get a team like this that goes on this kind of heater, and it's a vexing situation because there's I mean, how close can you get, right? I mean, you can only get close so many times, and your window closes, and Calgary, is their window closing after this year? Well, certainly if they lose Johnny Gaudreau, it's not as open as it was. Yeah, I mean, big time. The thing is that I really wondered if the Tyler Toffoli trade to Calgary would be very similar to the Thomas Vanek trade to Montreal, where Montreal was already humming. Then they bring in the best goal scorer available, which Tyler Toffoli, I think it's not exactly a hot take to say he's probably the best goal scorer available in this draft, in this free agency, I should say. And they bring him in, and it just elevated them to a new level. And so, and then you look at the other part of that puzzle, which is the excellent goaltending that you mentioned. And maybe, they might have what it takes. And at the, at a certain point, and a friend of mine likes to say this, at a certain point, rebuilding is all fine and good, but at a certain point, you've got to be built. Right. Exactly. Right? Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. And they are. I mean, so now it becomes a matter of, are you willing to just not throw away, but trade away the picks, the few picks that you have? Yeah. Are you willing to do that? Or are you willing to get rid of one of those, good young prospects for a big fish? Yeah. So, I mean, it comes down to that, basically. Yeah. You deal away one or both of those second round picks, and you might as well do the draft remotely if you're Calgary, right? I mean, we're not picking until round 5, and we only got a 5th and a 7th, so. Yeah, we're having a scouting meeting in Hawaii the day of the draft. Yeah, we'll call in our pick, Yeah. So, yeah. Yeah, big time. So check out kencampbell.substack.com, and we will move on to the next segment, which is on last week's podcast, which you can get on YouTube or Substack. Or Spotify or Spotify. Apparently we have a YouTube channel too. That should be the name of this episode. Apparently we have YouTube. Then people will know. It's all the rage. It's all the rage. Yeah. And actually, funny enough, I've got some friends that have had to do the market research of this, and they do say that the kids are on YouTube, because I can't stand the idea of sitting down and watching a podcast on YouTube. Yeah. But I guess that's what the young fellas are doing. Maybe we should go on TikTok and just do 10-second takes. We should do dances. Just like Vegas sucks, and then that's it.
All right. Well, that's called the opposite of burying the lead. That's exposing the lead.
Right.
You ridiculed me last week.
I did.
You ridiculed me last week for saying that we shouldn't sleep on Vegas.
Yeah, we should sleep on Vegas.
Now that you've had a few sleeps.
Absolutely. Have a nap on Vegas.
You know who you sounded like?
Who?
You sounded like your friend Craig Button when Montreal was going to the playoffs last year. And Craig's like, I don't think they're going to win a game.
No, he didn't say, I don't think they're going to win a game. He said, they're not going to win a game. Okay. I think if Craig could have picked Toronto in 3, he would have done that last year. Yeah.
So that's what you sounded like when you're talking about Vegas. You're like, they're not even going to go to the playoffs this year. So I'm wondering, now that you've had some time to think about it.
Sober second thought?
Hopefully sober second thought.
Well, you never know.
Yeah. Now that you've had some time to think about it, do you think that Vegas is going to go to the playoffs? Obviously injury has been an issue with that team all year. Do you think that they're going to make a trade to shore up that ability to get to the playoffs? What do you think? What do you think Vegas is going to do?
Well, if
you don't have to tell us how you feel about them. Right. I think that we all we've
yeah, I have zero.
I'm not the most observant guy in the world, but
I have.
I follow the breadcrumbs.
I have zero faith in the Vegas Golden Knights. I have none. In fact, I have none. I don't think they're going to do much at all in the playoffs. I think Jack Eichel is working his way in there, and he's been very good. Actually, he's been really good. A lot of nights, he's actually been their best player.
Yeah.
But I think this Jack Eichel year is kind of the lost year, and then you kind of really start next year with him. But are they going to make the playoffs? Yeah, probably. Just because they're in a terrible, terrible, terrible division.
As we did talk about the Pacific Division just recently.
Yeah, and to me, I was going to say something about Vegas. And now it was going to be really pithy and good, and I just completely forgot what I was going to say. But so what was the question again?
I hate division names because Vegas is in the Pacific Division.
Yeah.
And one thing that I always associate with the desert
is the Pacific Ocean.
Huge swaths of water. That's what I associate with the desert.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And Montreal is apparently Atlantic.
Right.
Because they're not a city, I guess.
Yeah.
The Metropolitan Division is the other one.
Columbus is in the Metropolitan Division. Right. The thriving metropolis of Columbus.
Columbus. Boy.
Yep.
So, I was just asking, do you think that Vegas makes a trade to shore up their playoff spot? Because, I mean, the truth is that we all know that the back end of that Max Pacheretti deal is probably not going to look all that great.
Nope.
You've only got a couple years, like maybe this year and next year, and then we start to see things fall off with Pacheretti and Mark Stone. And it's even a surprise that it hasn't fallen off already. Falled off. Yeah, irregardless of that.
But like it is falling off. It is falling off because they can't stay healthy.
That's a good point.
Like, I mean, that's got to be a factor at some point.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like if you don't have access to the guy because he's hurt, then that becomes a factor in what you did to get the guy. And, because I mean, Mark Stone is in a tough way, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
Max Pacheretti has had all kinds of problems staying healthy. When he's healthy, he's a 35 to 40 goal scorer.
Yeah. He's had one of the highest goal rates, like per 60 rates in the NHL all year.
Yeah.
But obviously the actual counting stats, the actual numbers that he's put up have been paltry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's the talk of them repatriating Marc-Andre Fleury, right? Which
I think that's crazy.
Yeah, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, you have Robin Lehner, you use Robin Lehner. Like what do you want to do? Like, do you want to create that whole soap opera all over again?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, is that what you want to do? I mean, I guess if Marc-Andre Fleury comes in, he comes in as knowing he's the backup. He is the backup, whatever. But like, really, like you're spending all these resources on Robin Lehner, like just run with the guy and see if he can do it for you in the playoffs, right?
As a dog returneth to his vomit.
Yeah.
I'll tell you the picture.
I know what I was going to say. I was going to say, if Vegas, you asked me if Vegas is going to make the playoffs, and I will quote the late, great Ken Campbell Sr., my dad, who worked for 35 years at Inco in Sudbury.
Right.
And he would say about the Vegas Golden Knights, if they don't make the playoffs, they deserve to get shot with a bucket of their own shit.
All right. So we're doing dad quotes.
Yeah.
My mom used to, whenever my mom would say, like, my dad's name is Ron, she'd say, Ron, I'm trying. And my dad would say, yes, you are trying. So Vegas can say to their fans, we're trying. Yeah. And the fans can say, yes, you are trying.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Well, I mean, it's fair. Now, my question is, because you did bring up injuries, do you think if this roster does get healthy and they do squeak into the playoffs, do you think that they can make some noise, all seriousness?
In all seriousness, of course.
Right.
Of course. Like, how could you not make noise with that group of players, reasonably healthy? I mean, they're not going to be completely healthy, but reasonably healthy. Yeah, of course. They could win the Stanley Cup. I just don't have any faith in them doing it.
Okay. All right. So I'm just going to take that one clip of saying they could win the Stanley Cup.
Yeah. Okay.
That's all that I need. So Boston Bruins.
Yep.
Our last trade topic du jour.
Just some men, really, of the week.
C'est vrai?
Not of the day.
C'est vrai?
Oui.
Of course, speaking French, talking about the Boston Bruins is, just...
It's a bit sacrilege.
It's a bit sacrilege. It's kind of like the opposite of art. Although
Montreal's... The Canadians are being run by a bunch of guys from Boston now anyway. So.
Yeah, it's a crazy world. It's a wild world.
It is.
Yeah. Ooh, baby. Yes. So the Boston Bruins, their core has been aging out for years. I personally have called them to fall out, to have the floor completely fall out from under them like 3 years in a row. And I just look like an idiot every single time. And thanks, Boston, because I didn't need any help in that department. So piss right off. Come on. But their core is aging out. And not only is their core aging out now, but now there's a question as to contracts.
Right.
Okay. So firstly, I want to talk about Jake Debrosk. He's currently number 6 on TSN's trade bait list. But at 5 versus 5, Jake Debrosk is tied in points per 60 with a certain Patrice Bergeron.
Yeah.
So he's playing well.
Yeah.
Despite all the rumors of
he's playing well right now.
Trouble in paradise.
The problem is that Jake Debrosk goes MIA for very, very long periods of time.
Right.
When he's like the little boy with the curl, right? When he's good, he's really good. When he's bad, he's really bad. And that's the problem with Jake Debrosk. And if I'm the Boston Bruins, it's like, yeah, I know you want to be traded, Jake Debrosk. I know you want out. You've requested a trade. We're not giving it to you.
Well, that was what my question was.
We're not giving it to you. You belong to us. You're under contract for us. You're going to play for us. Shut up, play. And play the way you're playing right now, by the way.
Yeah. Not the way you played like 16 hours ago.
Yeah. Well, actually, it was pretty good 16 hours ago. Not like the way you played 16 half weeks ago or 8 weeks ago, whatever.
16 and a half weeks. A fortnight and a half.
A fortnight, yes. But yeah, so no, like to me, it's like, no. I mean, just because he wants to be traded.
Yeah. So let's
I wouldn't trade him. Why?
Let's bring this into a different section of this discussion.
Unless one caveat. You think Jake DeBrusk. You've seen Jake DeBrusk.
Yes.
You've seen how prone he can be to wildly inconsistent play.
Yes.
And you go, well, maybe we're never going to get more for him than we are now. And then you have to have that conversation. I do expect the Boston Bruins will be active at the trade deadline. And for no other reason than they're always active at the trade deadline. Like Don Sweeney's a freaking trade deadline cowboy.
Yeah.
Like he makes trade deadline deals. This guy makes those deals.
Yeah.
So I would suspect they're going to try to make more. They do it every year.
This gets to another side of this discussion, which is, how deep do you think that the Boston Bruins are in talks with Bergeron to extend his contract?
I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters right now.
You don't think it
right
matters?
now? No.
Because to me,
No,
if
it's gonna-
Bergeron
he-
says to me, "I'm planning on retiring this year," then I trade every single pick, every single prospect I have at this trade deadline to push just all my chips in to make one last kick at the can, knowing that
yeah.
without Bergeron, the team does collapse in unto itself. And if he says, "Yeah, you know what, I'm kind of leaning towards trying to play in this league 2 or 3 more years," and the fact that he's still playing well, like presumably he hasn't fallen off a cliff yet. He's not going to.
Yeah.
He'll age gracefully, as we both have.
Right.
Yes.
Exactly.
And so that would be then my question. If he says I want to play for 2 or 3 more years, then maybe I'm not selling at this trade deadline. Maybe I'm not buying at this trade dedeadline. Maybe I'm saying I'm going to retool for next year. Do a soft retool kind of thing, which Boston's already done recently.
Which they've done, yeah. And I think like again, I said, I mean, Don Sweeney's been a big time mover at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
I mean,
they've shaker.
talked, yes, a shaker too. They've talked, I mean, the JT Miller stuff keeps going back to Boston.
Right.
They do need, like, they need someone. They still haven't replaced David Krejci, right?
Yes.
They haven't replaced David Krejci. They need a second line center.
Yeah.
There's not too many of those guys out there right now.
Yeah.
Possibly Claude Giroux. Possibly.
And even in his second line role, I'd say that Giroux's more of a winger.
Yeah.
He could be a great third line center, but in his second line role,
right,
I'd rather him on the wing.
And Giroux, I don't know. He just looks like one of those guys that would look weird in a Boston Bruins uniform. There's Tomas Hertl, right? Yeah. I mean, do you go for a Tomas Hertl? Maybe, but San Jose's trying to re-sign him, and they think they might be able to. Yeah. So that takes him off the board. So now you're looking at wingers, and JT Miller would be a good one. Yeah. They do need to find, ultimately they do need to find a replacement for David Krejci, because I don't think it's Erik Haula. As much as he tries and he's actually been good, and
he's been fine.
He's done probably more than they would have expected, but you need someone in that spot.
Yeah, and you have to ask yourself, like, if a fine second line center rarely gets you the Stanley Cup, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so you've got to ask yourself, is this a Stanley Cup second line center?
Well, are the Bruins a Stanley Cup team?
But
I mean, they're good. They're good. The Bruins are good. They're not great.
If they're going to the playoffs, and then they should be loading up. If they think that this is the last year of Bergeron, then they should be pushing their chips in. If they think that they can sign Bergeron for another couple more years, I think that they should be selling at the trade deadline and be targeting next year.
I think Bergeron will be one of those, I'll go year by year now kind of thing.
Like, well, they have a history of it in Boston.
Yeah, and they've got a history of, with the exception of Charlie McAvoy, being able to just tell players, this is what we can give you, and if you want to take it and stay, then do that, and if you don't, then move along. But Patrice Bergeron's going, well, you can never say never. I mean, Daniel Alfredson ended up playing for the Detroit Red Wings, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so you can't ever say never. You can never say never.
Played 2 games with the St. Louis Blues.
Who did?
Brodeur.
Yeah.
Right? Like, like that. So, like, Brodeur played like 20 years.
Yeah.
With New Jersey. I don't think that any player has played as long with one team as Brodeur played with New Jersey.
Yeah, I don't see it, but you can never just count it out. But I could just see Patrice Bergeron being like, I'm going to be a year-to-year guy now, and I'll take 1 year at, whatever.
Yeah.
And then we'll talk about it next year when we see where I'm at. But, I mean, you're right about him and his play. I mean, he's still
outstanding.
Yeah, terrific.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he hasn't hit the wall yet.
This is the thing with a smart player, right? Like, and I mean, Joe Thornton is now very much going down that slide, but the fact that he went to a Stanley Cup final at like 37 or 38 is in no small part due to the fact that, he's big. Yeah, he's strong. Yeah, he's all those things, but he's a bloody Albert Einstein on the ice.
Yeah, but the difference was in San Jose that he wasn't the guy.
Yeah, Joe, that's fair. Yeah.
By the end, Joe wasn't
Pavelski.
The guy. Yeah, Joe Pavelski. You had Logan Couture. You had, Thomas Hertl. There was a
Hall of Famer Patrick Marleau.
Yeah.
He's probably going to get in.
Yeah.
We talked about that.
We did talk about that. That's why I was just
and I said he was probably going to get in, and you said no. Is that what we're?
I think we were both pretty iffy on him.
Yeah.
So
I mean, there is something to be said for showing up for work every day, but I mean, like I said, I referenced my dad. He did it for 35 years. Nobody put him in a Hall of Fame.
Yeah. I've still got my great grandfather's pen from the Montreal Florist Society.
Wow.
And it was given to him after 25 years as a florist.
Wow.
Because he immigrated here from Ireland and into Montreal. And, an Irish person immigrating to Montreal. What a shock.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that was about all he got, is my point. He got a pen.
Nice.
25 years and all I got was a stinking pen. Not even the ink to go with it. All right. Shall we transition out and talk about the OHL?
Yeah, I think we've kind of tied this one up, right? The Boston Bruins. They're going to do something. They're going to do something. I don't know how big it's going to be. They don't have their prospect list isn't
It's
great.
not stellar.
It's not great.
Yeah.
They got their picks. They've got their firsts for the next 2 years.
Yep.
So they've got those.
Yep.
They can move those around. So
the last thing that I'd ask you is, do you think that there's a player that makes sense for Boston if they're loading up and going for it?
yeah, like I think a JT Miller would. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if a Tomas Hertl's available, I mean, he just slides right in there in the second line spot. Perfect.
Yeah. I mean, how can I argue with those two picks?
Yeah.
Thanks, Ken.
No trouble.
All right. So before we get out of here, let's talk about our government here in Ontario.
Yep.
In the latest bid for the Please Reelect Me.
Yes, we're going to buy your votes with your own money. Yeah, that.
Yeah. Doug Ford is going to spend $3 million, and it's going to go towards the OHL, towards, as the tweet that you referenced called it, players' scholarships.
Yeah.
That's over $176,000 per OHL team of public money.
Yep.
Now, my question to you is, where specifically do you think this money is going? The wording in the tweet you quoted yesterday said scholarships. What exactly do you think that means?
Well, I don't think there's anything hugely nefarious here. I do think $176,000 per team is enormous number. Like, how many guys are going to school, and where are these guys going to school? But I mean, the OHL and all junior hockey leagues have a very, very extensive scholarship package, right? They, most of the top players get these scholarships. A lot of them don't use them,
Right.
Like a guy like we talked about Jordan Frasca last week, the overage in Kingston, right? He signed with Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
So he won't be using his.
Right.
Like, he would have had that. I assume he would have had that 4 years at a Canadian university, tuition, books, and all of that. And he ain't going to use it.
Yeah.
Because he signed a pro deal. Right.
Yeah.
So, I don't, I can't get my head around $176,000 per team. There's 17 teams in the OHL. They got $2.5 million last year, or $2.25 million last year.
Yeah.
And they're getting $3 million this year to cover their scholarship commitments. Like, to me, what I find so outrageous is that, okay, I'm all for government's giving a helping hand, but they're already doing that.
Right.
I mean, they've allowed these teams to skirt the minimum wage laws. They don't have to pay these kids minimum wage, Yeah. And so that's you're getting that already.
Right.
Why do they need to stick their hand out again and get more money from the government?
Yeah.
Like, I'm outraged as a taxpayer that this is happening. This is part of a $30 million pool that is going to, like, something like sports and fitness or something like that.
Right.
Okay, yeah, if you want to do that, that's fine. But you're giving money to... And I know they don't all make money, and I know they've all suffered because of the pandemic.
Right.
But everyone has. But you're giving that money to teams whose objective, for the most part, other than maybe the Kitchener Rangers and a few other teams that are community owned, they're a money making venture, right? They exist not to give kids a chance to play junior hockey, they want to make money, right?
Yeah.
So I just find it outrageous to me that's a lot of money to be giving kids. And I mean, I know the OHL talks about how many jobs they create and all those other things, but you're already getting a nice, like an enormous break, because when this went to court, the junior leagues lost in all the courts. The courts all said you can't do this, but the governments, they lost. They won in the court. They won in the court of law. They lost in the court of public opinion.
Right.
Right. So they're already getting a great deal from the government. They don't have to pay these kids. They don't have to pay the minimum wage. And now they're asking for more money. I know that they don't have gates and they've suffered, but man, oh man, where does this end?
Yeah. I don't have a huge problem with it in and of itself. My larger concern would be if the government wants to pay money to hockey, would be dealing with it at a grassroots level, in the sense of, instead of, like, kids that make the OHL by and large come from relatively well-to-do families.
Yeah. Yeah.
By and large. There's obviously exceptions to every single rule, right?
Yeah.
But they come from relatively well-to-do families, and it's great to pay for their school, but presumably that family, because, has some sort of an RESP in place, right? Like, we got an RESP in place the second she was born, right? The second our daughter was born.
Yeah.
And so I guess what I would be saying is that I would think that money would be better spent to a league like the GTHL, not necessarily to pay for scholarships, but rather to say that every team can have 2 or 3 or 4 players paid for, so that the GTHL can go to a select house league game and say, I want you on the team.
Right.
And it's, well, we can't afford the team. No, it's good. You're good. I want you on the team. Give you guys a chance. And so that's where I'd see the money. If you do want to grow the sport in Ontario, and you do want better opportunities for kids, and of course at that point, then there's a trickle down effect, right? Which is that more programming equals less police spending, right?
Oh yeah, that's the hope. Yeah,
but my point is that, like, police and jail spending,
and it leads into health and fitness, and childhood obesity, the whole deal. Okay, so we've got of the 30 million, 20 million to ministry recognized provincial sports organizations and multi-sports organizations, so we're like, I guess that means like Baseball Ontario and that sort of thing, to distribute to their local member clubs such as soccer, karate, and volleyball. Right on. That's quite the weird 3 sports.
Yeah. Soccer, karate, and volleyball.
You could play all 3 at the same time, maybe.
Yeah.
7 million to the Ontario Sport Network to distribute to local community-based sports and recreation organizers such as dance and cheerleading through an application process. Again, right on.
Yeah.
So we're up to 27. Now we hit the 3 million. 3 million to help the Ontario Hockey League and its 17 teams meet their academic scholarship commitments for current and former players. Which one of these friggin' things doesn't belong? Which one doesn't belong? The other ones are both dedicated to grassroots.
Yeah.
The OHL is nothing that even resembles grassroots.
Right.
By the time you're playing in the OHL, you're at this part of the bodyneck.
Yeah. You've already spent your 40 grand on, making it there.
40 grand? 40 grand a year, maybe. To me, it's outrage. It's an outrage. It's just an outrage.
Yeah.
That our provincial government thinks it can just give $3 million of taxpayer money to a bunch of organizations that already get a massive massive break.
Yeah.
From having to pay their players.
Yeah.
Which is another outrage.
Yeah.
As far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I
always thought that Doug Ford was more of a football guy.
Yeah.
Didn't his brother Rob coach football?
Oh, he did. Yeah, he coached at a high school.
Rexdale or something like that.
Yeah.
So I always thought he was more of a football guy, but there you go, I guess. So
I don't know. It just doesn't sit well with me at all. It's almost like when you probably don't remember this, but the Canadian government, the federal government in like the early 2000s came out with this scheme that was the US dollar equalization plan.
Right.
And they were going to give $2 million to each Canadian NHL team to help equalize the US dollar, because Canadian teams pay their players in US currency.
Right.
But bring in their revenues, the vast majority of their revenues in Canadian currency. And there was a big disparity between the two currencies at that time. And so they were going to give them $2 million each team. And I remember talking to the Leafs and talking to Ken Dryden and saying, are you going to take this money? And he was like, yes, which of course.
Right.
Of course you're going to take it.
Yeah.
And he said, yeah, because, we have to be able to spend with the New York Rangers of the league and the Detroit Red Wings. We've got to be able to spend with them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's probably not the spirit of this whole thing.
Yeah.
Anyways, they got carved. They just got carved, and they
imagine Twitter
abandoned.
at that point.
Yeah, that would have been. Yeah, they abandoned the whole thing. Like they said, not a good idea. No, time out.
Yeah.
Forget it. No, we're not giving $2 million.
Was that the Jean Chrétien government?
That would have been early 2000s. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah. Wild.
Yeah.
Wild. All right.
Yes.
Anything else you want to talk about before we get out of here?
No, I think I'm good.
Really?
Yeah.
First time I've heard that.
Wait a minute. I didn't expect that. I don't know. I got a lot of hate on Twitter for saying that Milan Lucic's just hit on Philip Broberg the other night was a bad hit.
I didn't see the hate. I didn't get too far into it, but I know that your two buddies, Matt Larkin and Craig Button, both disagreed with you.
Oh, did Matt disagree as well?
Yeah.
I didn't see Matt disagree.
Matt wrote a whole article on it.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to have him on the podcast as like a gotcha moment.
Ah, okay.
I mean, I don't really understand the need for hate in that situation.
I don't even care if it's that, but there's nothing, everybody's saying it was 12 feet away from the boards. There's nothing. There's nothing in the board. Read the boarding rule as it's written in the NHL rule book. There is nothing in that rule that talks about proximity to the boards.
Yeah.
It says boarding is an offense that occurs when someone gets hit and is caused to violently or dangerously hit the boards.
Right.
That's what boarding is.
Yeah.
Or charging. I mean, he starts from the center ice.
So if you're Lucic and you've got Johnny Gaudreau, I guess they're on the same team, so that wouldn't make sense.
No.
But you got a little fella, and you can throw him like a javelin from center ice and hit the boards. It can still be boarding, is your point.
No, I'm not. My point is that he was close enough to the boards that hit caused him to go violently and dangerously into the boards.
Right.
Which you could still call boarding.
Yeah.
I think it was charging, but
right.
In any event, he could have let up. And we're talking about this all the time now. Either you want to protect your players or you don't.
Yeah.
Like either you do or you don't. And if you don't, okay, fine, don't.
Yeah.
But I mean, he could have let up, and they keep saying Broberg turned around and braced himself. Of course he did. He saw Milan Lucic coming at him. What else was he going to do? Yeah. So anyways.
At a certain point in the Paloma running of the Bulls, you just kind of go to the fetal position and hope you don't get hurt too bad.
Exactly. Yeah. So to me, I mean, I know it wasn't, shocker. It was a unpopular take, but.
I mean, here's the thing, right? Like there was a.
What if Tom Wilson had made that hit?
Well, I don't think that that's a fair comparison because I think that Milan Lucic is as, if not more, despised than Tom Wilson. But there was Montreal challenge for goal the other day on goaltender interference, and the fella, he got bumped about 8 feet away from Montembeault and was clearly off balance, hit Montembeault, and they said, no, he got bumped by the defenseman.
Right.
I'm like, okay, but that's fair. But you're supposing that he's 8 feet out and far to Montembeault's left. You're supposing that he had to take that route in front because they're like, he couldn't do anything to avoid the contact because he was off balance when he was turning into the net.
Right.
Well, that's all fine and good, but why did he have to turn into the net? He had plenty of time to not turn into the net. And so I think that's kind of like what we're having trouble reconciling here is that responsibility, because it's like the argument that I see is that Lucic was going after the puck and the guy's just he's a bull. And so anybody's going to bounce off him that goes into his
puck. Was he going after the puck?
But it's the same thing as the Mark Scheifele hit last
didn't have
year.
the puck. Broberg didn't have the puck on his stick. The puck was against the boards and he was 10 or 12 feet away from it.
No, but they were both in that direction, right?
Yeah,
so I guess that's sort of my point, is that how much, like, if you're responsible for your stick in a high sticking situation, no matter what kind of an accident it is, other than a follow through on a shot, you're responsible for your stick.
Right.
Then how responsible are you for that situation where Broberg already has his path to the puck?
Yep.
Are you responsible for avoiding that path to the puck? Right? Because it's just like goaltending. There's you're allowed to establish your space as a goaltender, right? And then once you've established your space, that becomes goaltender interference,
right?
If you encroach on that space that the goaltender's established. So that's what it comes down to for me. And I think that's something that we're going to have to actually figure out in hockey, is what's your responsibility.
Well, good luck. I mean, yeah, seriously. I mean,
why don't we just let Ken Dryden figure it out for us?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know how much I agree with you as the rules are written now.
Okay.
But I do agree with you that the fact that is not an uncommon thing in the NHL, two guys going for a puck and somebody bounces off the other person. The fact is that it's Lucic and Broberg. So there's a huge weight disparity in that situation. And so that to me makes it worse. But I think that maybe we need to develop something to deal with that. I think that as the rules are written now, it's fine. But if we acknowledge that accidents can cause just as much head trauma as
that wouldn't have been an accident. That would have been, and maybe not even malicious, but careless or reckless.
It was careless.
Reckless.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It was
reckless.
It was reckless. But as the rules are written now, that recklessness is okay. But the recklessness of the high stick is not okay.
Not okay. Yeah.
So I think that needs to be changed.
Okay.
But so much in the spirit of how I normally am, I both agree and disagree.
How to take a stand, big guy.
Yeah, well,
be courageous.
This is how I make everybody happy on Twitter.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much for sticking around to the end of this episode. If you want this episode directly in your inbox, check out kencampbell.substack.com. You can also get all of Ken's writing from his Substack.
And we have Bob McKenzie coming up next week.
Oh, we got Bob coming up next week. Yeah. So stick around next week.
The Bob Father.
The Bob Father is coming up next week to be on I guess that's the last episode before trade deadline.
It is. Yeah. It is. It'll be the 16th and the trade deadline's on the 21st.
So we've got the Bob Father of all NHL insiders coming up next week. And please give us a rating and a review on Apple Podcasts. Check out YouTube. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you want to go back and listen to certain clips, I update the clips for almost every day. You're going to get a new clip on YouTube. All great stuff. Thanks so much for sticking around.